Yeah, so what I'm talking about basically is what's called the idea of universal design or inclusive curriculum. So what I'm talking about basically is designing all of my classes so that every one of my students, regardless of background, regardless of disability of any kind, can participate without the need for specific adjustments to accommodate them. Yeah, so I've got a number of strategies which, again, it really helps remembering what it was like to be the student who was struggling to participate. So I do things which would have helped me, but I think also will just help my students in general. So number one for me is creating as relaxed an environment in my classes as possible. I really want to make it something where everyone feels that they're enjoying a class, everyone feels that it's okay for them to join in. Even to an extent, it's okay for them to be wrong, it's okay for them to make a mistake, that's fine. There's all kinds of other strategies as well which are based around building confidence. So my favourite one is the idea of cluster discussions. So in a seminar format, rather than jumping straight into a discussion where, right, let's talk about this idea, I give the students the questions in advance of the class, and then I give them 5 minutes in the class where they break down into groups of 3 or 4, and they can talk for sort of 5-10 minutes to develop their ideas on this topic. So you've got this safe environment, talking just a couple of people, where you can develop an idea, you can work out what you think about something. Which then will give you the confidence to talk about it in front of the whole group. Other strategies as well are things like giving my slideshows before a lecture, so that people have got access to the information. They can work out some of the ideas themselves. They can know what's coming. Make your point as well, because there are a lot of students who, whether they know it or not, are dyslexic. So making sure any difficult terms are clearly spelled out on my slideshows, putting all the information there, putting a clear structure there. It's something I found all of my students like, actually. So it starts out as an inclusivity measure, but then if I forget to post a slideshow, I'm nagged by a huge range of my students, when you're going to post the slideshow. And I've found actually now a lot of my students will have the slideshow open on their laptop in front of them as I'm lecturing, so they're not looking at the big screen, and they're making notes alongside the slideshow. So it's something which works for a lot of my students. It's something which I've got universally positive feedback, really. Admittedly, some students think, why are we having any of this group work? Why can't you just lecture us for the whole time? But that's a sort of strategic approach to learning. But my classes get almost universally positive feedback. Yes, they score sort of 4.7, 4.9 out of 5 for overall satisfaction. And I think more importantly, though, everyone just seems to enjoy them. There's a nice relaxed atmosphere. I've got a nice back and forth with the students. I sort of overhear comments saying they enjoyed that, found that really interesting afterwards, which is exactly what I want to hear. Again, there's a number of different things here. The first one really is making sure you're not going for a one-size-fits-all model. You have to be aware that everyone will be different. What works really well for one student won't work for another student. So you have to be prepared to be flexible. You have to be prepared to change approaches as you're going along. So make sure you go for this really inclusive philosophy, making sure it's just a normal part of the class. You're not making a show of it being inclusive. That we want to stretch our students. We want to push our students to be the best that they can be, in spite of any difficulties they might have coming in.